of ensure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. This is the third installment of the Dynasty Series. We are joined with Stephen Ellis of DailyFaceoff, Associate Editor and Prospect Analyst over there. Stephen, how are we feeling today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm waiting on the caffeine to kick in. It was a long trip yesterday, but caught up on sleep as much as I could. Thanks for hanging out today, middle of the day. Appreciate you carving some time out for us. We're 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey. You can find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We got the YouTube right now. Some folks join in the chat here. We got the Fantasy Hockey Discord. You guys can join. Steven, what are you working on? I know you got a bunch going on over at DFO. Most recently, there's an article that's definitely going to bring up here because high risk, high reward players is going to be for us going into our dynasty drafts and things like that. People are going to be interested in that. But what else are you working on? What can people click on?
A lot. I'm doing basically from about the 1 month point of draft day up until the draft itself. I'm doing at least one draft article a day. My draft rankings come out on Thursday, my top 100. So I've got most of the bios done for that. Just a couple small movements kind of here and there. And more stuff, more player profiles, kind of a top 15 goalies list thing. So if you like prospects, there's a lot coming out.
So let's start from kind of a high level view here. The 2025 class as a whole, I guess if you had to like TLDR it, what's the summary of this draft look like? How does it compare to recent drafts?
It's good. It's not super deep by any means. Like if I had to look at like 24, 25, 26, when you get to that range in the draft, it's like, okay, now you're just looking at guys that you just kind of hope will become decent players. The high end is really good. Like you look at Matthew Schaefer, might be one of the most skilled defensemen we've seen in a long time with the draft. And then you look at Michael Misa, who is maybe one of the most skilled CHL players we've seen in a long time, just coming off of this great 62-goal, 134-point season, who you ask scouts to find a flaw in his game, and they can't. So, there's a lot of things like that you look at and say, okay, like this is a good high-end draft, but I don't think you're going to find the greatest amount of value once you get it out of like the top 10 and then obviously later in the first round. But I will say some good goalie prospects, some good guys out of the queue, two things that are hard to find a lot.
When the draft order came out, did that change your rankings at all? Kind of seeing situational need or something like that? I guess maybe it would change like a mock draft article or something like that. Maybe the rankings would stay the same. Did the draft order change your opinion on anything, where people might go, things like that?
Not too much. Like I think Matthew Schaefer is the best prospect regardless, and I think that's going to be something where like the Islanders, they need anything they could possibly get. Utah at number 4 is definitely an interesting one. A lot of talk about them picking Brady Martin, but they could also take James Haggins. Maybe Porter Martone's available. I think the one team that it definitely didn't work out for is the San Jose Sharks. That is a team that really needed a high-end defensive prospect. That's like the one thing that pipeline is missing. And they're not going to get it this year. So they're not going to trade down because that would be stupid, in my opinion. Trading down also just doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure most of the time we've seen teams like trade down early in the draft close to 20 years now at this point. So I think that will kind of make things interesting. Chicago's in a great spot where like they don't have to make a tough decision, I think, at this where they're going to be getting. So yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say there was a ton of movement, but the Islanders winning was like, whoa, okay, like, first off, thank you. Now I got to redo my entire mock draft in like 2 seconds. But on the other hand, hey, it's chaos. It's fun.
They do seem, I mean, Cole Yzerman might be, it's definitely the marquee prospect out of their system, but it might be the only one worth talking about, really. So, like you said, they could use anything. I guess I'm with you. I love seeing prospects be able to, in reference at least to San Jose, like for them to get Schaefer, it kind of completes the picture. And yeah, I mean, you have to think that the Islanders are going to take Schaefer, but they could use a Misa too. So maybe there's a conversation there.
What's the thing? It's like Misa would be like, I'm from Oakville, Ontario, where John Tavares is from, where it's also the place where Cal Ritchie's from. and where Michael Misa's from. So seeing those two guys playing together would have been pretty cool. And considering the Islanders seem to scout a lot in Oakville, I don't know what they're doing there, but kind of a situation there where they would draft Misa, and I don't think it would be a bad pick whatsoever. You're talking about like as good of a forward you're going to find in any draft. But Schaefer is that's a rare thing to find, a defenseman that thinks and moves and plays the way he does.
Have you found yourself attached to any players? Like, do you I've got my own favorite teams, the Flyers, and, talking about trading down, I'm very familiar with what they do in trading down and how it doesn't work out. But do you find yourself, I can only imagine like a draft class is almost like a team for people in the prospect world where, you have your favorite players. Do you find yourself kind of having to mute I feel like bias is kind of a strong word, but there's not another word for it. Do you have to like kind of force yourself to be objective on certain players that you are more partial to?
Well, I think if there's guys that you really like watching for certain reasons that make them like one of your favorite prospects, like that's something to kind of bet high on and see like, yeah, like I can be right on this guy. Like I had Dustin Wolf as a first round prospect in the year he went in the 7th round. And I had Lane Hudson as a top 10 prospect the year he went where he did. So like you gotta bet high on the guys you really believe in. Like the two guys I bet high on a lot, and maybe less, like I think everyone's kind of caught up on them though, was Brady Martin, Kashawn Aitchison. I had Brady Martin as a potential top 10 pick at the start of the season when a lot of people had him more 20th type thing. And then Kashawn Aitchison, I just like, as much as teams are still craving those Matthew Schaefers, Lane Hudsons, Quinn Hughes, Cale Makars, the guys who could do so much with the puck, you also need guys who know how to play defense. And Kashawn Aitchison does that while also being like one of the most physical players in the entire draft. So I'd say like you got to make sure you're not like overvaluing a guy too much. But if you really believe in a guy, like show your belief in that player in your rankings.
So I want to talk now about the tiers. It sounds kind of like Misa's in a tier of his own, Schaefer's in a tier of his own. Where do you see the other tier breaks? So there's not a ton of, I guess there's a good amount of D inside what we would call the top round, but it seems like Schaefer might be the only one with high offensive output. Am I out to lunch on this one, or is most of the guys more defensive minded past Schaefer?
I'd say Schaefer's kind of like there's no defenseman that's too close to him. Like Jackson Smith, Radim Murka, Kashawn Aitchison, Logan Hensler, like those guys, like you look at different boards and they'll be in all different orders, but for the most part, you're not talking about any of these guys being a top 5 prospect. And Schaefer, just the thing that makes him so good, if I had to pick out the one thing, it's his mind, the way he thinks games, but also he can do a great job of blocking out distractions. He is also one of the most mature prospects I've ever talked to. Like this is a guy who in interviews, he's cracking jokes, having a good time, and so upbeat and positive for a guy that missed most of his draft season. I believe it was his team owner died, and his mom and his billet mom died last season. Like this is a guy who's been through everything and has every reason to not be positive and to have taken a step back in his game. And he has found just ways to continue elevating himself to another level there. So Schaefer is in his own class. I like Jackson Smith. I feel like I kind of soured on him a little bit near the end of the season. Kashawn Aitchison, I understand a lot of people don't think his offense is going to translate to the next level, and I don't disagree, but I think that he still is going to be that physical defensive force. Radim Murka, I want to see his decision-making improve, but a 6'6" defenseman who could skate, obviously teams are going to love guys like that. So you're looking at all that, and I'd say those guys are very close to each other, but they're not close to Matthew Schaefer.
Fair enough. Is there anybody that's a little more like, if we had to rank the offensive defensemen, how would the landscape change in defensemen?
If I'm going best offensive defenseman, I'm thinking like it's definitely Schaefer, maybe Jackson Smith from there. And then maybe it's close between Aitchison and I'd say Cameron Reed out of Kitchener, a guy that really has learned how to use his skating to his advantage to create the offensive opportunities there. I think Logan Hensler is a guy that doesn't put up a ton of points, but he moves the puck really well. And I wonder if that will be something where he figures it out as he plays more in the NCAA. But I think Schaefer's the best with the puck, no question about it. I'd argue he's also like a top 5 neutral zone defender and in the top 10, just pure defensive defenseman. So just a lot going for Schaefer in particular.
From what I've heard around the water cooler, it seems like maybe one of the more contentious names out there is Brady Martin, just based on how much he's risen over the past few months or so. But are there, I guess, touch a little bit on Martin too, if you feel the same. But are there more contentious names out there that you find have a wider range of, I guess, rankings or opinions or something like that, amongst your colleagues?
I'd say, yeah, Brady Martin, I'd say a lot of people have really kind of bought into him, and I fully agree why. Like, if Utah takes him, I think it's a good move. If he's still there past Boston, I'll be surprised. A lot of teams could use guys like him, and I think the average fan are looking at it and saying, "Oh, he only put up 70-something points." It's like, on a good team, he probably would put up 100, like the way he played this year. He's so aggressive. He wins every battle. He's the best power forward in this draft. No one hits as hard as he does. Nobody wants to impact the game like he does. And you look at the players that are a key part of the Florida Panthers right now. Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand. He has a little bit of both of them in him. And that's the thing. Like, this is a guy you win with in the playoffs. The guys that teams are starting to really look at and say, that's who we should be targeting. Not the most skilled players. Let's look for the guys who are going to make the impact come playoff time, knowing how playoff hockey is. And that's what Brady Martin is. The one I'd say another name to keep an eye out was Roger McQueen. A lot of people, myself included, think he's a top 5 prospect in terms of pure talent. I'm just worried about the fact that he's coming off a back injury and then didn't look that great to finish the season. You look at what happened with Caden Lidstrom, basically just lost this whole season outside of the WHL final and then the Memorial Cup. I would be concerned about what he's capable of. But 6'5" guy who could score, who could skate, who could deke out anybody, like, there's a reason Roger McQueen is as rated as high as he is. But I feel like he's going to slip in the draft because teams aren't going to want to take the risk.
So you touched a little bit on my next question. Now, that's the team that they're playing on right now, that scouts have built their kind of portfolio of opinions on players. Brady Martin being on a lesser team where he wasn't able to put up as many points. Are there players in this draft class who might have inflated draft stock due to being on good teams that you think, maybe not definitively, but there's a risk that, say they go to, I don't know, one of the NHL teams that isn't insulated as well, where they could kind of fall flat or feel a little bit diluted?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if there's a guy that's kind of fits that mark. Like, maybe Christian Epperson, because he got to get a lot of points playing with Michael Misa, but I don't know. I don't know if I would say that. Simon Wang is a guy that I like, and part of it was, I don't know if this one is exactly the correct answer for this one, but Simon Wang, 6'6" defenseman, dominated the OJHL, like tier 2 junior A hockey here, dominated that level, goes to the OHL, struggled, took a while for him to kind of start to feel comfortable, but he's a very raw talent who skates really well, is 6'6", but he also only really started playing hockey at a competitive level when he was only 14 years old. Like, he's had to play a lot of catch up, but his size and his skating has really allowed him to kind of rise some, go up the rankings for that. So I really like him. I also do wonder if Sasha Bowman-Median out of Sweden is a guy that might have used the end of the season to kind of really, he struggled at points this year in college. He struggled in the Hlinka Gretzky, but everything kind of seemed to just go away the minute he played at the U18s and put up one of the best performances we've ever seen by a defenseman. Is that the real guy that we're talking about here, or is it the guy that can still make too many mistakes and you're wondering, is this guy actually going to just be refined enough for the NHL? We'll have to see. So I'd say those are kind of the guys I'm looking at in that situation.
Well, I mean, you can definitely paint it as a good thing that there isn't anybody that, benefited or I guess was capped by the team surrounding them. It gave you a chance to get more objective opinions about the player and how they might fit into NHL teams around the league now. All right. So we talked about Aitchison. We talked about Brady Martin. I want to get into some other superlatives as well. In terms of who are the hitters, Aitchison and Brady Martin seem like kind of the lock, stock, barrel, run them down kind of guys. Is there anybody else that fits that mold?
Roger McQueen. For sure. Like that's a guy that doesn't need to be physically dominant to win to be effective, but he can. Like that's the thing. Like he's got that size. He can go out there and just knock guys down. We'll see if that kind of ends up being his style of game. Daniil Prokhorov, or the Russian forward, 6'5", again, a guy that just wants to overpower everyone. And once he figured out how to use that to his advantage, he started to really kind of grow as a player and become a guy that went from like on no one's draft radar to like he might be a second rounder, he might be a third rounder. I like Shane Fansaugi, a guy that I feel like super confident in becoming an NHL player, and maybe he might be a guy that plays like the 5th most games in this draft class, because I feel like he's just got everything going for him in the way that he battles, the way he hits. But he also is a pretty smart offensive player that doesn't always get to show that because he plays deeper down the lineup at Michigan State. But he plays a pro-style game of power, strength. He could skate. He could do all that stuff. Not a lot of flashiness to him, and that's why he probably won't go in the first round. But I see a guy who will be a good third or fourth line player, like a guy that you're like, oh, I would trade a second round pick for him at the NHL trade deadline and hope that he can kind of have a good playoffs. Like that's the type of guy that I could see him being. Anton Frundell also isn't afraid to hit anybody out there. I like that out of him. Malte Vass, the Swedish defenseman, another one where I feel like he's mostly just known for kind of the way he intimidates guys, but there isn't anyone like, there's no Gabe Eliason this year where it's a guy that just prioritizes trying to kill someone and ignores the actual hockey playing aspect of it. We don't really have that in kind of the high end of the draft this year.
Now, how about guys that might fit in or have like top power play potential? Whether it's, forwards that might hit the top power play. And I guess, Matthew Schaefer, we've kind of drilled down on him to a point where, he could be a QB1 on a power play. Is there anybody else that fits that mold?
Michael Misa. 100%. Like this, he scored 62 goals this year. A lot of them came on the power play, but this is a guy that if he was to go back to the OHL next year, and I'm not convinced he will, could easily do 75 goals. Like he's just, what a shot generator he could be. Porter Martone didn't see a massive influx in goals like a lot of people expected. He became a better playmaker, but I'd still argue he's got one of the best shots in the entire draft. Like this is a guy who just, like, between the accuracy, the power, you name it, like he's got a lot going for him there. Cameron Schmidt, I feel like is going to have to start putting a lot of pucks on net to be very effective because he is only 5'8". Justin Carbonneau, nearly 50 goals in the queue this year. Another guy that puts a lot of pucks on net, generates a lot of offense on his own. And Anton Frundell has a blast of a shot. Like I think if you don't put him on a power play, it's a mistake because he might be a center in the NHL, but I feel like you put him on the flanks on the power play, he's going to rip so many shots in the back of the net. And that's what he's been able to do in the Allsvenskan and Swedish junior team. So I'd say those are the guys I'm looking at there that they're going to fit that mold.
I want to drill down on some specific players now. And one I haven't had a chance to ask anybody about is Caleb Desnoyers. I think there was something either on The Athletic where they went around and talked to like team scouts and stuff, and people had Desnoyers at like 3. And, obviously other people have him a little bit lower. And it just seems like there is a pretty wide spread, but the spread is kind of limited to the top 10. He could fall anywhere inside the top 10, I guess, outside of 1 and 2. But tell me a little bit about him. What is it that some teams really value in him and some teams are a little bit more worried about? He
loves to win. And you watch him at the U17s, the Hunter Gretzky U18s, gold medals on all of them. And you can look and say, yeah, he played for Team Canada. You kind of expect to win those junior tournaments, but he was such a big part of all of those. And then he played with an injury this year. I believe it was actually a wrist injury, and it didn't seem to slow him down during the QMJHL playoffs as Bunkton went the distance and won. And 84 points this year, where if he was fully healthy, 90-95 was probably on the board there. Really good playmaker. I think he's got a really good shot. I'd like to see him use it more because he can dominate. He's really smart, good physical player. The one thing that's really kind of holding him back is just a lack of pure pace. Like he's not a fast enough skater. His acceleration could be a bit slow. And there are times where he could probably go out there and create his own breakaways, but he falls short because someone just outraces him. But he plays a good 200-foot game. Like he's involved at both ends of the ice. He's an all around good centerman, and he's not the flashiest guy, but he's a really safe pick. Like I'd say his floor, like he's going to be able to get 50-point seasons pretty easy. It's just how high could he go from there? That's the question. But he's a guy that is like you want players like going out winning junior tournaments and stuff like that. That's one thing, but like he's been so good at actually just being effective everywhere and in being a big part and playing these big minutes. That's what you want from a guy like that.
We had a couple names drop through the Discord. Folks were curious about Ben Kindell, Justin Carbonneau, and Cole Reshny. No idea if I'm saying those names correctly. I feel like I have the most confidence in Ben Kindell, but do you mind telling me a little bit about these guys?
Yeah, so Ben Kindell is a guy that I never really sure where to put him on the draft board, but he's a really smart forward was one of the hottest players in the WHL, just a guy that really kind of rose up ranks, like maybe a fringe first rounder at the start, now like 15 to 20 range kind of feels where he's going to go. Loves to find open space, can exploit it really well, and I think he's overall just a smart player. I don't know if he's going to get a ton of points in the NHL. He can play center in the wing, but he's a guy that's going to outsmart you a lot of the time, so that's good. Cole Reshny out of Victoria, going to college this next season. Great end of the year for the U18s, and that's a thing like Desnoyers where he continues to shine when he plays on these international tournaments. Doesn't matter who he's playing with. Like I remember watching him at the U17s. He played with Gavin McKenna and was better than Gavin McKenna. And like that's a guy that I think is not big. I think he's like 5'10", 5'11", but I'm not sure that's going to hurt him too much because he's got a lot of pure natural skill and he's a really good playmaker. And Justin Carbonneau, I don't think he received enough love for how good of a season he had. He had just missed the 90-point mark over in the QMJHL. A guy that just seems to just win a lot of puck battles, and he's a human highlight reel. The one concern is he doesn't really engage physically, like at all. Like I don't know if he throws any hits whatsoever, but you could put him as a first or second line guy, and he's going to put up 25, 30 goals a year. And that's what I'm looking at here and saying, like, he's going to be a very good value pick in this draft.
Now, this second tier, excuse me, the second tier of forwards is pretty curious because that's where you kind of find the James Hagans, the Frondell, the Martone. And I'm curious, personally, what's your second tier, I guess, behind Michael Misa? How big does that second tier get, and what separates these players, I guess?
I'd say you're looking at Martone, Hagans, Desnoyers, and Frondell as maybe that like next range, and then like O'Brien, Martin, Eklund, Aitchison, Smith, Merca, Carbonneau, Bear, maybe in that next group. When you look at that, like Martone, another guy you win with, he can't, like, it feels like he kind of lacked some of the physical intensity that we know he's capable of because he can show it at times, but he doesn't show it consistently enough. But if he could do that, like, whoa, okay, like he's got a bullet of a shot. He's one of the smartest players in this draft. He's a great playmaker now, too. Like, he's got all the tools there. Hagans didn't have, an explosive year at Boston College, but like a point per game still at college as a freshman is still very difficult to achieve. Yeah, he played with some really good line mates, but he's never going to be this massive point producing guy. Even though, like, it's kind of funny saying that given he has, like, the record for most points at a U17 and the U18 World Championship. But for him, it's more about just using his brain to beat everybody out there. And that's what he's really good at. Obviously, we talked about Desnoyers, Frondell. He's a good power forward, good shot. He can play center or the wing, defensively solid. Can make some other times you kind of want him to be a bit more physical. Like, he lost a couple battles against guys he probably should not have during junior hockey tournaments this year, but I'd still say those guys, like, you're going to be happy taking any of those guys because none of them are very similar. You got three centers and a wing, all kind of play different styles, but they're all good in different ways that you can feel confident as a top six player.
Now, this is one of the draft classes I'm looking at, top round in aggregate here. I don't see a lot of Russians. Is that like raw talent? They just didn't make it? Is it more of a sentiment on, oh, well, we have to wait an extra 1 or 2 years? What do you make of that? I guess there's Ryabkin, Ryabkin.
And even him, like,
Yeah.
Played in the USHL,
USSA.
struggled a lot this year. Like, I'm not sure he's a first round player right now. We'll see. He's for me, he's like a fringe first rounder. Yeah, it's just not a good year for Russian players. And I know some Russian scouts who, the minute that Ryabkin left, it's like, what do we do the rest of the year? But there's some guys that are going to be some interesting picks. Like I know Kerben Limbitov I could see a team kind of stretching on him. I got him at number 42, but I could see a team stretching on him. It's a lot going for him defensively. Alex Zarovsky, really big riser. The real value in Russia this year, though, is the goaltending, whether it be Semyon Frolov, and I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce some of the names because I'll just screw them up. But there's a bunch of good Russian goalies, and it's kind of become a thing in the scouting world. It's like, when in doubt late in the draft, just draft a big Russian goalie. There's a lot of them, and you never know if any of them are going to work out. So Russian goalie prospects are so hard to judge because you'll watch a guy with like a 930 save percentage in the Russian Junior League, and that's like the 17th best save percentage in the league. So it's really difficult to kind of evaluate goalies playing there. You're still waiting for them to go to the KHL and see what they could do. But yeah, I'd say Russia, it's not a good draft year. I've heard the 09s are getting some love. We'll see in 2 years, but right now, yeah, it's not a strong year for Russians.
So on that goalie bit, Ravensburgen kind of leads the pack in terms of projected, I guess, highest ranking. What do you like about Ravensburgen specifically? And then tell us a little bit more about, some of the goalies kind of nipping at his heels.
So a lot of bigger goalies, and he's 6'5". A lot of bigger goalies will rely on just their big frame to kind of make saves. But for him, he's got that pure athleticism, a great glove hand. You put that together, like you've got kind of everything you're looking for in a goalie. He's done a lot of winning in the last 2 years. Like watching the way he came out with Prince George last year was like remarkable. Some outstanding numbers. Very calm in the net. I think we're going to see him at the World Juniors the next couple of years. And like to kind of look at the World Juniors for a second, like Canada, I know so much gets talked about Canadian goaltending being an issue right now. Holy moly, man! These next couple of World Juniors are going to be great for Canada net. Evan Gardner, Carter George has got another year of eligibility. Jack Ivankovic, Joshua Ravensburgen. Like there's some good goalies that are in the pipeline right now for Canada. But then there's also Jack Ivankovic, like I mentioned. Like he's probably my favorite goalie in the draft. He's 5'11" though. That's the problem. You look at him, not a big goalie, but he's got a lot of the things kind of ironed out that you're looking for out of a smaller goalie. So you've got that athleticism, you've got that pure speed. He also does a really good job of taking space away with his glove hand up high. He's got a great glove hand. His numbers weren't spectacular in the OHL, but I think you got to take into account that like Brampton's defense just also wasn't very good. So he had to do a lot of the heavy lifting. But whenever he played at a showcase event, he was typically one of the best goalies you're going to find. So at this age group, I feel very confident about him. If he goes in the second round, I think a team's getting a really good prospect. But I understand the concerns of a guy who's that small.
Now, Ivan Kovic hits your high risk, high reward profile. And I'm curious, like, who are the other players, not to, draw clicks away from the article or anything like that, but just, some other players that if they fix one part of their game could wind up, 5 years from now when we're doing redrafts of this class, people scratching their head. How did he go so low?
Yeah, one will be Ivan Ryabkin, of course, a guy that just started off really slow, figured it out in the USHL, but the question was, like, was he playing at good enough competition to the point where, like, the numbers weren't inflated a little bit? We'll see. Alex Zarovsky out of Russia, a guy that, like, the NHL Central Scouting literally did not have him on the board at the halfway point of the season, and now he might be a second-round pick. Like, a guy like that, that's a massive rise. So I think there's a bit of risk there, but like, because when it comes to these massive rise, like how much of this just him like playing off of pure momentum, then he gets to the next level, it doesn't carry over. I'm not too concerned. And then Adam Benosh, the Czech forward, 5'7", again, another really small guy, but he's set records, the most points ever at the Hlinka Gretzky. What a great passer he is. He's so dangerous. You watch him with the U18s, world, like the Hlinka Gretzky, like dominant in that sense. He's got a good shot. He's a bit more tenacious than I think he gets credit for, but that's still like would make him one of the smallest players in the NHL like ever. So it's going to be difficult for him, but I still think that the pure skill is going to keep him in the conversation for at least the top 70.
I got one more on the kind of like a sleeper, I guess, kind of pairs in with the high risk, high reward bits, like removing the first round in our dynasty drafts. We're looking for these counting stats and things like that. Are there any sleepers or hidden gems that we might find maybe round 2, round 3 that are going to really pad the stats in I guess the categories that we're looking for: shots, hits, goals, blocks, that kind of thing.
I'd say I like what Ryan Miller does. Not the goaltender as much as he was one of my favorite goalies growing up, but there's a winger on the Portland Winterhawks. That's a guy that very tenacious, quick, put up some good points this year in the WHL. He's another guy kind of like Brady Martin where you can win with him because he's out there being extremely aggressive, but he's never putting himself over the line. Like he's smart, he's getting in your face, and he's got the hockey, like the puck skills to kind of back that up. So I really like him there. I think that Shamar Moses may be a really kind of off the board pick, but not crazy numbers, but very few guys are going to work as hard as he is. And I think you're still going to like him as a future like bottom six guy. And then there's Luka Radivojevic, the defenseman out of Slovakia. His dad, Branko, played in the NHL, was more of an energy forward, but he was also big and strong. Unfortunately for Radivojevic at 5'10", he doesn't fit that mold. But you watch him at the World Juniors, you watch him at the U18s, all these tournaments, and he's always Slovakia's best player. And I think the amount of skill and the way he reads the puck is fantastic, but he does get caved in his own zone a little bit. If he can figure out how to add some extra muscle when he goes to college, that could really go a long way for him. But I like where his game is at. I think he's fallen a lot in draft boards because he just didn't have this amazing season by any means in the USHL, but I think he's going to be a really nice value pick where he's going to play in the power play if he makes the NHL. So we'll see what happens to him.
Taking a step outside this draft class, players who are already in systems, it seems like Demidov and Ryan Leonard could kind of headline the Calder class going into next year. Who else? Is there anybody that we're kind of that we're overlooking that has a real shot at being at least in the top three, or some names that would be in consideration? Anything jump out to you?
Gabe Perreault, I kind of would like to see where his game's going to be at next year. The New York Rangers gave him a somewhat of a shot. I feel like they kind of wasted his time by calling him up, playing 3 games, and then sitting him pretty quickly. Z Bouillon could be a top 4 defenseman in the NHL next year. Artem Levshunov, another guy who's going to be a big part of Chicago. I would like to see maybe if Beckett Seneca can make the NHL right away. Maybe he's not there for the whole season, but a guy that the Ducks absolutely love. Simon Nemec. I guess he's not Calder eligible anymore, but I'd still consider him a prospect. But Denton Matejchuk, another young guy I'm really liking. It'll be interesting to see if Jesper Wallstedt can finally break through with Minnesota Wild. Obviously, a lot of people kind of thought he would be the backup this year. Fleury stuck around, didn't really work out that way, and then he had a poor season in the NHL. Next year should be in the NHL. We'll see if he can kind of become the goalie everyone expects. So those are some of the names I'm looking at there.
Well, I'm really curious to see like Anaheim in particular, just because, new coach, things like that. But they've done weirder things in the past. Like they're very young team, and I was looking at their home and away splits. They were actually a pretty good team at home. So there's definitely something there, and I'd love to see Seneca get a chance in that. That's all I got for you, man. That's, we covered a ton of ground in 30 minutes here. So I want to say thanks again. Open up the floor to you where people can find you, what stuff they can click on, and look at your work.
Yeah, well, I'm basically mostly on Twitter, Blue Sky. I put all my stories on there, which is a prospect story every single day leading up to the draft. So draft rankings coming out Thursday. A lot of more fun stuff coming. I will be in LA, so we'll have some coverage from there. And as always, I got to do the propaganda. Play ball hockey, everybody. It's a fun sport. It's the sport I'm getting into the most recently. I played 3 games last night, got 2 tonight. It's going to be fun, so play it. It's a good way of getting into the sport.
Well, right on, man. How's that going to work? I mean, I don't have this one kind of like nailed down, but how's it going to work in LA? I guess media is allowed in, and it's just Zoom past that. Like all the prospects aren't there, or what?
So 100 prospects are expected to be in person. So it's the teams themselves that won't be there. So they're going to be team representatives. Like for the Islanders, I'm assuming they'll get like a Hockey Hall of Fame guy. Blackhawks, probably a similar situation there. Utah will be interesting. I actually have no idea what they would do for that. But I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of special guests for all the players. And I think that part's going to be cool. But get ready for a draft in person again next year when everyone's there.
Yeah,
That's what it's
that
looking
seems
like.
like it.
I know.
So I guess
When I've asked people like where they want, like to people around the league, go where they want it. Montreal is the place that gets mentioned a lot, and I'd assume it would probably go back out east, given it's been 2 out west years, or 3 out west years, because Nashville, I guess, too. So 3 years out west, they're going to probably want to go out east this time. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't think anyone would complain if it goes to Montreal, other than like I'm pretty sure in 22, a good majority of hockey media got COVID on that trip. If it was below 50%, I would be surprised. I didn't get it, but I know so many other people did, at least on the way home.
I heard that Vegas was pretty rad too. Like that was being in the Sphere and everything.
Oh, the Sphere, like it's hard. TV did not do that justice. How cool that was! Like the screen is unbelievable. Like what an experience. It was hard to kind of actually see the Sphere itself once the media availabilities happened, because it was like a complete other end of the building, and there was no view of the Sphere from there. So I was probably on the floor up until when Celine Dion passed me with a note in her hand that said Ivan Nemedov. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we know who they're drafting. But that was cool. Other than like also everything in Vegas is hard to get around. Like I learned how the Uber system works, and they can only pick up at individual spots. Like you can't just get picked up anywhere like you can in most other places. And then what else do they have? Like the awards were in a completely different spot. That building was confusing. The media workroom was nowhere near that. So it was nice when it was Montreal. Everything was like in one spot. And Nashville was fun because like that was Party City on Broadway, which was like right beside the rink. So that was always good. So the rooftop patios were fun. So we'll see what LA's like. I know it's expensive there, so we'll see. But it's been a long time since I've been to that city, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, everyone, that's Stephen Ellis. We got that's our third installment of the Dynasty Series here. Follow Stephen Ellis over on Twitter at @SEllisHockey. Are you the same at Blue Sky? Same tag?
It's actually StephenPEllis.ca. It's attached to my own personal website. So when you type in my website, it takes you to my Blue Sky page.
We'll love that, and obviously everything you're doing over at the at DailyFaceoff, and you got the rankings coming out Thursday. Look out for that one. Once again, just thanks for hanging out, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right, going to cue the outro music, do a little outro bit here. We're 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey. If you guys are digging the Dynasty Series, let us know in the Discord. Find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey. And we've got the YouTube channel if you guys want to watch at the same time. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Thank you especially to Stephen Ellis for making some time today. And thanks to my kids for being good upstairs. Like I didn't hear a single peep out of them. This was great. So take care, everybody. We love you.
Adios, turd nuggets.